For years, the term problem management had a special meaning for me. No, it wasn't the volatility of the stock market, or the dot-com bubble, or the anxieties of the war on terrorism and homeland security. No, it was none of those things, you see, my friend, because I raised two teenagers. Every week a new crisis, the raging hormones, the adolescent angst, the cultural tinderbox, and of course a few moments of pure joy. You know what? This may very well describe your IT environment, come to think of it. So you're in the right place at the right time. Let's take a look at problem management. In this nugget, we'll conquer 5 key topics. First of all, we'll define what problems are. And of course, as we know already, it's not dealing with teenage kids. It's a whole other thing entirely. We'll also compare problem management to incident management. And in the course of that, comparing problems to incidents. They're two different things. We'll look at the goals and objectives of problem management. We'll explore the problem management processes and, of course, and then finally, the very important role of the problem manager. When it gets right down to it, the bottom line is this. Problem management is very closely related, tightly coupled to the service desk and incident management. And it's because of that tight coupling to incident management that a lot of organizations actually get into trouble because they have the same policy controlling and governing incident management as they do problem management, typically wrapped up in the same team of people. Unfortunately, that can lead to a lot of problems, as we're going to see here in this particular nugget movie. You see, the main concern with problem management is eliminating infrastructure errors, where incident management has nothing to do with eliminating infrastructure errors. It's basically getting the end user back into operation as soon as possible. As a matter of fact, incident management and problem management actually have contradictory goals in mind. The goal of problem management is to find the underlying cause of actual and potential failures. Remember, problems lead to incidences. Incidences do not lead to problems. Where incident management is a reactive process, problem management at its core should be a proactive process. Improving problem resolution, locating areas that need to be improved, and freeing up resources for problem resolution. If your organization or your business is deeply entrenched in the day-to-day, hour-by-hour reactive incident and problem resolution, you're not going to have any time to free up the organization and personnel for the proactive approach to problem resolution. In addition, problem management deals with tracking and monitoring the infrastructure, again, leading to less incidences, which also leads to less downtime for end users and customers. Now, when we talk about problem management, we're really talking about 3 different definitions that relate to one another. First of all, you have your problem, and a problem is defined as an undesirable situation, okay? An indication of unknown root cause, one or more existing or potential incidents imminent. That's a problem, typically an infrastructure issue. Now, what that leads to is the known error, okay? So a problem is going to lead to a known error. A known error is a problem for which the root cause is known and for which a temporary workaround has been identified. From that known error and the subsequent workaround, we've got what's called an RFC. A request for change, not a request for comment like we see up on the web with RFCs for IP addressing and how TFTP works and things like that. IPsec, for example, RFC in the sense of request for change. A request for change is going to be a document that proposes a change, typically allocating time, resources, and people to the infrastructure to eliminate a known error. Next, we want to look at problem management versus incident management. It's a key differentiation. And I want to first talk about something I mentioned earlier when I said that problem management and incident management really have 2 contradictory goals in mind. I mean, think about it. With incident management at the service desk, what we really want to do is we want to find a quick fix or workaround or quick solution to get that user or customer back up and running and back doing their thing as quickly as possible. With problem management, we're looking for the root cause of issues, the root cause of problems that lead to multiple incidences. So in the process of investigating problems, we may have a long period of downtime. During that downtime, incidents may be solved using workarounds or quick fixes to just simply address the user issues. Now, when you combine problem management and incident management, as you can see, into one IT service, you're really kind of contradicting each other. So from an ITIL standpoint, you would like to separate these IT services if possible. This is going to give you long-term effectiveness. Problem management should support incident management. In other words, by providing workarounds and temporary solutions while at the same time looking for long-term solutions. Behind the scenes, often with the change management, which we're going to look at later on in this Nugget series. Problem management does not do any incident resolution. In other words, they don't interface directly with users and customers to solve problems. They'll work with incident management and change management through the service desk model. Problem management is going to take time, often a long time, to identify root causes of incidents, even if it means bringing in vendors, suppliers, manufacturers, consultants. This could be an extended period of unplanned downtime. From an incident management standpoint, you never want extended periods of unplanned downtime when dealing with users and customers through the service desk for incidents. It's very important to understand this. So optimally, we want to separate these two processes in the IT service area. Also, problem management is often an escalation point for the service desk incident management. When you're escalating either vertically or horizontally, often you're going now into the realm of problem management. For example, let's say your company has implemented a custom sales lead tracking application for your sales force, and you notice that you've got several incidents at the service desk for errors that are popping up when your user/customer is trying to export that database into, let's say, a spreadsheet or some other format so they can make it mobile and take it with them. So you've got this incident that's popping up. Well, if you cannot figure the problem out in the service desk incident management process, you're going to pass that on to problem management, and they're going to, of course, take the information from the database, and they're going to go through their process, hopefully giving you a quick fix or a workaround, and then going and looking at the root cause of that problem in the application or in the network infrastructure. Two different processes. So understanding the differences between incident management and our knowledge of incident management, comparing it to problem management, should help lead us to the goals and objectives of problem management in an ITIL environment. Right off the bat, one of the ways you can differentiate the two areas of problem management is firefighting versus and/or fire prevention. And take a second here to think about the process of a firefighter. Maybe you live in a small town and you've got the local firefighters. Think about what their job role really entails. Two things: firefighting, which hopefully happens on rare occasions, and on a daily or weekly basis, fire prevention, going to businesses, conducting inspections and doing training and doing awareness seminars to help prevent fires. When we think about firefighters, we think about the dangerous role of going out there in those suits and fighting a fire. But in a way, almost a more important role is to go out into the community, into the organization, and help prevent fires through training and awareness. A proactive approach rather than a reactive approach. So problem management is reactive and proactive, but you'd like to spend the majority of your time and resources being proactive, like the local firefighters and fire marshals. This is a very good analogy to the way an ITIL organization should approach problem management. What we want to do is, and a major goal, is to minimize the adverse effects of problems and incidents on our business. Also, along with this is kind of the concept of a firewall. You want to put a system in place so that if you have an outbreak in one area of the organization or the business, it's not going to spread into another area of the business. So that kind of firewall concept, which goes along with firefighting, is the same thing here. With problem management, let's say we're dealing with a worm or a virus or some type of security outbreak, we will also be able to isolate and kind of modularize that problem so it doesn't spread to other areas of the business. That's also part of minimizing the adverse effects. So most of the time, a large percentage should be spent on proactively preventing the occurrence of incidents, the occurrence of problems, and the occurrence of errors. So a typical process of the problem manager or the PM team would go through is going to have a three-step process. First of all, it would be to identify the errors, to identify the problems. Then go through a decision-making process. And this means, is this even a problem that at this time we have to allocate resources to? It also involves prioritizing this particular error or problem. And then, once the decision is made, to act accordingly, monitor and report and see it through to its logical conclusion, finally closing up the case and fully documenting the process. Another objective of PM is to present proposals. Present proposals to management and to stakeholders for the constant improvement of your systems, of your infrastructure, to help rectify errors. This could be a proposal for doing a system-wide update or an upgrade, for example. Let's use my State Farm example. Submitting proposals for upgrading all of the servers and all of the State Farm agencies from Windows 2000 to the more secure Windows 2003 with all of its security updates. Okay. Also with hot fixes and patches that'll help rectify errors as well. Errors that occur from running certain applications on the operating system. SQL Server, for example, Exchange, things like that. It also means presenting proposals for how we're going to respond to those requests for change that are submitted from the problem management area. Again, the goal to proactively identify weaknesses and vulnerabilities in the infrastructure. These are the goals and objectives of problem management. The process of problem management is basically threefold. You've got a series of different types of inputs. Those vary upon your organization. Then you have your main actions that you're going to take based on the input into the PM process. And then, of course, the results of those actions are going to be your outputs. Typical example of some of the inputs you would receive into the process would be incidents. These would be incidents as reported from the service desk, and of course this is going to be logged and recorded into the database. Whatever you call it, the incident database, the change management database, whatever your company wants to call this, that's going to be a main aspect of your inputs. Also, other inputs that are going to be acted upon are fixes. Fixes and workarounds that either are discovered by your organization or things that you may learn from vendors, contractors, third-party consultants, manufacturers, producers of the products that you purchase. Configurations, configuration details. This can come from a configuration database. This can be stored in text files. Data from vendors, that goes back to workarounds and fixes. Information you learn from your vendors about their products, the hardware and software that you purchase. Inputs, information from service level agreements. That may also be acted upon. Records, any types of recording, whether it's done automated or whether it's done manually. Logs that are stored in a syslog server, for example. Performance metrics. Maybe you're using Windows Performance Monitor. Performance metrics that are recorded about software and hardware. All these things are inputs that can be acted upon in the problem management process. The main actions you're going to take really are fourfold. You're going to have what's called problem control, error control, proactive management, and then reporting and documentation. Now I'm going to go through these main actions. They're so important that we're going to go through these one at a time. I'll elaborate on each of these in just a second. But what are the outputs? The main outputs from the problem management process are going to be things like this. So if problem control is the defining, the investigation, the diagnosis process, the process of transforming problems into known errors, and error control is monitoring and controlling known errors and raising these requests for change, and proactive problem management is preventing avoidable incidents by improving the infrastructure, and of course reporting and documentation is the reports on the results and major problems. Then what are the outputs from these activities? Well, outputs can include an error database, a known error database. You could also call this a problem database. As we've talked about, requests for change, RFCs. These may be sent to the change management process. Again, the change management process may be a separate IT service from problem management, or it may be integrated. Let me just say this. Integrating the change management with the problem management is nowhere near as difficult and as inefficient as combining the incident management and the problem management. That'll make sense a little bit later on when we look at change management. Again, problem records. And we talked about the difference between problem records and problem management of those records and incident records earlier. That's a major output. And then, of course, once you resolve the issue, you resolve the problem, then you've got closed records. So these are the four main outputs of the problem management process. As you saw, problem control is the first and primary action of problem management. It's the process of identifying problems and investigating and diagnosing the root causes. Of course, in problem control, the goal is to get these problems to the state of being a known error. And we do this through classification, we do this through investigation, we do this through diagnosis. Once we do this, we're going to generate a request for change, and then we'll resolve the problem and then close the case. Of course, the request for change is documentation. This could also go to the change management process as well. Now, I mentioned that turning a problem into a known error is done through a process of classification. And that's true. Classification itself includes several different techniques, okay? There's the process of categorization, or to categorize. You identify the relevant domain or the relevant area for this problem. Is it a security problem? Is it a security incident? Is it a hardware issue? Is it a software issue? Is it an in-house application error? Is it a vendor-specific application error? You see the point here. We categorize it. Then we justify allocating resources to this problem by judging its impact. What is the impact on our business process? What is the impact on the bottom line? This could be impact in terms of time, in terms of financial, in terms of personnel needed to be moved to this problem. Is it urgent? Okay? Can you defer this particular problem to a later date to prioritize it, which is the next thing, and put something else more important in its place? Then what is the status? Okay, all on the way you're going to monitor this process. What is the status of this particular problem? Is it a problem? Is it a known error? Is it resolved, or is it closed? And then, of course, problem control deals with investigation and diagnosis. This is a repeated process, or another word that you'll hear used is it's an iterative process. Okay, think about a DNS query, for example, going and moving to different layers of the DNS topology, the DNS hierarchy to resolve a domain name. This is an iterative process as well, repeated over and over and over till we get closer to resolution. Realize that during this iterative process, we may find a temporary fix or a workaround. Okay, if we do, we can communicate this to the incident management, and they can use this at the service desk, and we'll use these temporary fixes and workarounds during the iterative process until we get to a real resolution. And that resolution should be a permanent, long-term resolution. And again, the resolution itself may be replacing hardware, or replacing software, or replacing a service or a vendor with another better solution. Okay, so during the problem and process control, temporary or emergency fixes may be applied. As I mentioned, eventually through investigation and diagnosis, our problem will become a known error. Once it becomes a known error, it then enters the phase of error control. Okay, this is the process of monitoring and managing these known errors. And we'll do this until they are resolved. In the error control process, this is where the problem manager will issue requests for changes. This can be issued to other personnel in the change management area, or the RFC could get issued to change management IT service if you are following that aspect of the ITIL framework. Error control may also take part in evaluating the changes in a post-implementation review or a PIR. Now you might be wondering, what in the heck is a PIR? Well, let me give you a good example of how to find out what a PIR is. Remember the trusty ITIL version 3 glossary. Remember, guys and gals, let's always go to the source. Here's the PIR, the post-implementation review, a review that takes place after a change or, in some cases, a project has been implemented. Okay, the PIR is going to determine if the change or the project, in our case a change, was successful, and it'll identify opportunities for improving the process. Post-implementation review. Again, that's going to occur during that error control phase. The error control process, since it can be a wide variety of known errors, software, hardware, security, implementation, configuration, insourced, outsourced, it can involve several departments and units, some of which may not even be part of your organization. They may be third party, they may be contractors. So this is a very broad process. Error control also includes identifying errors, recording the errors, assessing the errors, documenting the resolution, and then ultimately closing the case. And during all the stages, we'll be tracking and monitoring, either in an automated fashion, using a product, let's say, from Computer Associates or Hewlett-Packard or Cisco, or it can be done manually with some proprietary system. As the previous two actions of problem management were more reactive, problem control and error control, the next action is the proactive aspect of problem management. That's where you focus on the quality of the infrastructure and the services. Pardon the spelling here, but this should be infrastructure. And this is an ongoing proactive improvement process. Many companies will use trend analysis and other software techniques to preempt problems and incidents, to proactively stabilize and enhance the infrastructure of their organization. Again, the goal here is to proactively look for weaknesses, to perform penetration testing. This is doing security tests and tests against wired and wireless systems, tests against hardware and software, try to penetrate the security boundaries, to test its usage of resources. You also want to look at keeping up with alerts from vendors and bulletins from vendors. For example, if you're using Cisco products or HP products, keep up with the vendor alerts. This should be done proactively and should be coming to the inbox, and you should be going to the website as well. You want to create firewall systems to prevent problems from moving from one domain or one module to the other. This could also be geographically, moving from one floor to the other or from one building to the other. Again, proactively identifying and investigating all of your systems, both hard and soft systems. Finally, we're going to look at the role of the problem manager who's responsible for all of the problem management activities. Now, optimally, in an ITIL framework, the problem manager will be somebody separate from the incident manager. But in many organizations, that is the same person or the same team. If that's the case, it's important from an ITIL standpoint to still separate the duties of incident management from problem management, even if the same individual or team is in charge of the activities. As a matter of fact, it's probably more optimal if the problem manager and the change manager are the same person, and the incident manager is somebody that works closely with the service desk personnel, where the problem manager is more of a second-tier person, maybe a network administrator, a systems administrator type, who's more closely aligned to the physical and software infrastructure. Now, the role and the responsibilities of the problem manager is to maintain all of the problem control procedures and the error control procedures. And of course, remember, the problems come before the error control. Also, the problem manager is going to constantly assess the effectiveness of the problem management process, making changes all along the way. Of course, to make any major changes, he or she will probably need team support or buy-in from middle management or upper management, some type of stakeholders. Again, to improve effectiveness, to improve your systems, it's often going to mean an outlay of money for new solutions. Another big responsibility for the problem manager is to protect the integrity and the independence of incident management. This is really my first point, okay? If the problem manager is also responsible for incident management, they need to have the capability to protect the integrity of incident management and the independence from the problem management process. The problem manager will also govern the proactive prevention campaigns. Again, think back to that firefighter who spends a lot of his or her time doing fire prevention, okay? Same thing here, proactive prevention campaigns to prevent errors and problems and incidents. They may also have to manage personnel on their own team, and personnel for different areas of the company, as well as resources. This could also involve acquisition of people, acquisition of products, hardware, and software. Again, part of assessing the effectiveness of the process, of course, is to then develop and improve the processes. And then once it's all said and done, and the processes or the problems are resolved, and you've closed the case, we want to do possibly what we call post-mortem reviews, reviewing key personnel, reviewing stakeholders, reviewing technical specialists to, again, make sure that we can put together a more improved environment. Constant improvement. Remember, from the very beginning, that's the goal of ITIL, constant improvement. In ITIL problem management, we covered 5 key areas. First of all, we defined what a problem is, and we compared it to an incident. Along those lines, we compared and contrasted problem management versus incident management, 2 totally different concepts with contradictory goals. We looked at the goals and objectives of problem management, the problem management processes, and then finally, some of the roles and responsibilities of the problem manager. I hope this CBT Nugget's been informative for you. I want to thank you for viewing. See you later.